The sharp sting of failure was something I thought I'd grown used to by now. But as I stood in the cold, sterile boardroom of my family's corporate empire, technically their corporate empire, I felt it pierce me like never before. My hands trembled slightly around the edges of the leather-bound notebook I held, though not from fear. No, this time, it wasn't fear that coursed through my veins, it was something else entirely. Something darker and hotter, bubbling beneath the surface. "My name is Kala," I began, forcing myself to meet their eyes across the table. Each pair of them stared back at me with varying degrees of disdain, pity, or outright mockery. "You've all called me a failure since I was old enough to understand what the word meant." They shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but no one interrupted. Perhaps they were curious about why I had demanded this meeting, an emergency summit, according to my email. Or perhaps they simply wanted to see if I would embarrass myself further, as I so often seem to do. Either way, I didn't care. Not anymore. Kala. The name itself carried weight for me. It wasn't just a label, it was a reminder of everything I wasn't supposed to be. Growing up, I was always compared to my older brother Adrian, who could charm investors with his smile alone and negotiate deals like he was born doing it. Then there was my younger sister Vivian, whose razor-sharp intellect made her the golden child of our father's tech division. And then, there was me. Kala. The middle child. The disappointment. "Let's get straight to the point," Uncle Marcus said finally, leaning forward in his chair. His voice dripped with impatience, the same tone he'd used when I failed my first business proposal 5 years ago. "Why are we here? You said this was urgent." I nodded slowly, letting the tension stretch another moment longer. They hated waiting, they always had, and today, I intended to make them squirm. "I'm here because you need me," I said simply, watching as confusion flickered across their faces. A few exchanged glances, unsure whether to laugh or scoff. "And because I'm done being your scapegoat." That got their attention. Aunt Evelyn leaned back in her seat, crossing her arms over her chest. She looked skeptical, but also intrigued, a rare combination for her. "Your scapegoat," she repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Kala darling, you've been failing at life since you were 12. We haven't exactly needed to force anything on you." Her words hit hard, even though I'd heard them countless times before. 12. That was the age when I'd first realized I wasn't cut out for the world of high-stakes business that my family thrived in. I'd tried, God knows I'd tried, but nothing ever worked out the way it should have. Every project I touched turned to ash, every deal I brokered fell apart before it could close. By the time I graduated college, I'd earned a reputation within the company, not as the daughter of its founder, but as the black sheep. The one who couldn't hack it. But today? Today was different. "You're right," I admitted, surprising them all. "I failed. Over and over again. But let me ask you something." I paused, letting my gaze sweep over each person seated at the table. "How many times have you blamed me for things that weren't my fault? How many times have you dismissed my ideas without even hearing them out?" No one answered. Of course they didn't. Instead, they fidgeted awkwardly, avoiding eye contact. Even Adrian, usually so quick with a witty retort, stayed silent. Good. Let them stew in their guilt for a moment. "I'm not here to relive the past," I continued, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "I'm here because I've spent the last 3 years building something. Something none of you saw coming." A murmur rippled through the room, low and uneasy. 3 years? They clearly hadn't expected that. In truth, I hadn't either, not at first. When I'd left the family business after yet another humiliating failure, I told myself I was walking away for good. No more late nights poring over spreadsheets, no more endless meetings where my contributions were ignored. I'd planned to disappear into obscurity, maybe start a quiet little cafe somewhere far away from their judgmental stares. But fate, or karma, depending on how you looked at it, had other plans. It started with a single idea. A tiny spark of inspiration that refused to die, no matter how much I tried to smother it. At first, I thought it was ridiculous. Unrealistic. Impossible. But the more I worked on it, the more it grew into something tangible. Something real. And now? Now it was poised to change everything. "What exactly are you talking about, Kala?" Father asked, his deep voice cutting through the murmurs. He sounded cautious, almost wary, which was unusual for him. Normally, he dismissed anything I said without a second thought. But today he seemed uncertain. I'm talking about innovation, I replied, my lips curling into a faint smile. About disrupting industries and rewriting rules. About creating something so powerful that it leaves the competition scrambling to catch up. Now they were listening. Really listening. Even Vivian, who rarely paid attention to anything outside her own projects, was staring at me with wide eyes. For once, I had their undivided attention. And where does this innovation come from? Uncle Marcus asked, his tone dripping with skepticism. Last I checked, you were running a failing startup out of your garage. His words stung, but I didn't let them show it. That failing startup has grown into something much bigger than any of you imagined. Bigger than I imagined, honestly. And soon, it's going to be impossible for you to ignore. Silence fell over the room again, thick and heavy. They didn't know what to say, and frankly, I didn't blame them. This wasn't the Kala they knew, the timid, insecure girl who crumbled under pressure. This was someone new. Someone stronger. Finally, Adrian spoke up, his voice tinged with amusement. All right, sis, you've got our attention. So tell us, what's this big secret project of yours? I took a deep breath, savoring the moment. This was it. The moment I'd been working toward for years. The moment I'd dreamed of during those long, lonely nights when everyone else had given up on me. It's called Lamora Tech, I said, letting the name hang in the air. And it's going to revolutionize the energy sector. Their reactions were priceless. Some gasped, others frowned, and a few actually laughed, though nervously, unsure whether I was serious or not. But I was deadly serious. Lamora Tech wasn't just another startup. It was a game changer, designed to tackle some of the biggest challenges facing the global economy: sustainability, efficiency, and accessibility. Using cutting-edge AI technology combined with renewable energy solutions, we created a platform capable of optimizing energy usage on an unprecedented scale. How did you even manage to fund something like that? Vivian asked, her curiosity getting the better of her. She'd always been the analytical one, the one who cared more about data than drama. You don't exactly have the resources, or the connections, to pull off something this ambitious. She wasn't wrong. At least, she wouldn't have been a few years ago. Back then, I'd been completely shut out of the family network, left to fend for myself in a world that didn't take kindly to outsiders. But desperation can be a powerful motivator, and I'd learned quickly how to adapt. I'd sold nearly everything I owned, maxed out my credit cards, and poured every ounce of energy I had into making Lamora Tech a reality. Along the way, I'd found allies, people who believed in my vision even when I didn't fully believe in it myself. Investors willing to take a chance on an unknown entrepreneur with nothing but a dream and a stubborn refusal to give up. I built it from scratch, I told her, my voice firm. With blood, sweat, and tears. And yes, a lot of help from people who actually believed in me. The jab landed exactly where I'd intended it to. Vivian flinched, just barely, but enough for me to notice. Good. Let her feel a fraction of the pain I'd endured for years. So what does this have to do with us? Father asked, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. He wasn't interested in my sob story or my journey to success. All he cared about was how it affected the family business. Everything, I said, leaning forward slightly. Because Lamora Tech isn't just competing with your companies, it's surpassing them. Your outdated methods, your refusal to embrace change, they're holding you back. And unless you adapt, you'll be left behind. For a moment, no one said anything. The weight of my words hung heavy in the air, sinking into their minds like stones dropped into still water. Then slowly, realization dawned on their faces. Realization, and fear. You're bluffing, Uncle Marcus said, though his voice lacked conviction. There's no way you could have pulled this off without us knowing. Oh, but I did, I replied, unable to hide the smirk that tugged at the corners of my mouth. In fact, I've already secured partnerships with several major corporations. Companies that used to belong to you. Does the name Solaris Group ring a bell? Their collective intake of breath was music to my ears. Solaris Group had been one of the crown jewels of the family empire, a lucrative subsidiary specializing in renewable energy. Until recently, that is. Unbeknownst to them, I'd spent months negotiating a deal with Solaris behind the scenes, leveraging Lamora Tech's innovative approach to win them over. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. Solaris had severed ties with the family business and signed an exclusive contract with me instead. That's impossible, Aunt Evelyn whispered, her face pale. We own Solaris. They wouldn't dare. They already have, I interrupted, my voice cold and final. And they're not the only ones. One by one, your competitors are lining up to work with Lamora Tech. Because unlike you, they recognize the value of innovation, of progress. The room erupted into chaos. Voices rose in anger, accusations flew, and chairs scraped against the floor as tempers flared. But I remained calm, watching them unravel with a sense of grim satisfaction. This was what I'd waited for. What I'd worked for. Revenge might not have been my original goal, but now that I had it within reach, I wasn't about to let go. When the noise finally subsided, Father fixed me with a steely glare. What do you want, Kala? He demanded, his voice tight with barely contained fury. Money? Power? What? I met his gaze head-on, refusing to back down. I want respect, I said simply. Not because I'm your daughter, but because I've earned it. And if you can't give me that, then maybe it's time for a change. He opened his mouth to respond, but I didn't wait to hear what he had to say. Instead, I turned on my heel and walked out of the boardroom, leaving them to pick up the pieces of the empire I'd just begun to dismantle. This wasn't the end. Far from it. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I was finally in control. And that feeling? It was intoxicating. Walking out of that boardroom felt like stepping into a new world, one where I wasn't just Kala the failure. For the first time in years, I could breathe without feeling the weight of their expectations crushing me. But as satisfying as it was to leave them speechless, I knew this moment wasn't about revenge alone. It was about proving something, not just to them, but to myself. The halls of the corporate headquarters were eerily quiet as I made my way toward the elevators. Employees glanced at me curiously from behind their desks, whispering behind cupped hands. They didn't recognize me, why would they? To them, I was just another stranger walking through the sleek glass and steel building. The irony wasn't lost on me. How many times had I walked these same halls unnoticed, dismissed as irrelevant even by the interns? As the elevator doors slid shut, I leaned against the cool metal wall and let out a shaky breath. My heart was racing, not from fear, but from adrenaline. I'd done it. I'd faced them head-on and laid down the gauntlet. Now came the hard part, holding my ground while they scrambled to regain control. When the elevator dinged open on the ground floor, I stepped out into the bustling lobby. Sunlight streamed through the massive windows, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Outside, the city buzzed with life, cars honking, people rushing past, skyscrapers towering above like silent witnesses to human ambition. And somewhere out there, Lamora Tech was making waves, its name spreading faster than I'd ever imagined possible. I pulled out my phone as I walked toward the exit, checking messages from my team. Their excitement was palpable, even through text. Did you see Solaris's press release? One read. They're calling us the future of energy efficiency. Another message simply said, you've got this, boss. A small smile tugged at my lips. These people believed in me, trusted me. Unlike my family, who had spent decades tearing me down, my team saw potential where others saw flaws. They weren't related to me by blood, but they were more family than anyone sitting in that boardroom upstairs. Still smiling faintly, I pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped outside. The crisp autumn air hit me like a wake-up call, grounding me in the present. Across the street, reporters were already gathering near the entrance, cameras flashing as they tried to get shots of anyone leaving the building. Word traveled fast in this industry, and if I knew anything about my family, it was that they hated being caught off guard. Today must have been particularly humiliating for them. Instead of heading straight for my car, I lingered for a moment, watching the chaos unfold. Reporters shouted questions at random employees exiting the building, though none seemed to know what was going on. One young man in a suit looked utterly bewildered when someone shoved a microphone in his face and asked, "Is it true your company is losing major clients to Lamora Tech?" Losing major clients. That thought sent a thrill through me. Not because I wanted to destroy my family's business, I wasn't that cruel, but because it meant we were succeeding where they had failed. Where I had failed so many times before. This wasn't just about proving them wrong anymore. It was about showing the world that innovation could come from unexpected places. From people who refused to give up, no matter how many times they fell. My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was a call from Theo, my co-founder and closest confidant at Lamora Tech. He'd been with me since the beginning, back when the company was little more than an idea scribbled on a napkin during a late-night diner run. Without him, I doubted I'd have made it this far. "Hey," I answered, slipping into my car and closing the door behind me. "What's up?" "You tell me," he replied, his tone light but tinged with concern. "How'd it go in there? Did they implode yet?" I chuckled softly. "Not quite. But close enough. I think Uncle Marcus might need CPR after hearing about Solaris." Theo laughed, a deep warm sound that always managed to calm me. "Good. He deserves it. Honestly, Kala, I'm proud of you. Facing them like that couldn't have been easy." "It wasn't," I admitted, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "But it needed to happen. They've treated me like garbage for years, Theo. Like I'm nothing. And now," I trailed off, unsure how to finish the sentence. "And now you're showing them exactly who you are," he finished for me. "A force to be reckoned with." His words sent a shiver down my spine. A force to be reckoned with. Was that really how people saw me now? Not the timid girl who cowered under her family's judgment, but someone strong, capable, unshakable? The idea felt foreign, yet exhilarating. "Thanks," I said finally, my voice soft. "I needed to hear that." "Anytime," he replied. "Listen, we've got a lot to discuss. Solaris isn't the only domino set to fall. There are other partnerships lining up, bigger ones. Are you ready for what comes next?" I hesitated. Ready? Probably not. But did it matter? Life rarely gave second chances, and I wasn't about to waste this one. "Yeah," I said firmly. "Let's do it." After hanging up, I sat in silence for a few moments, staring out the windshield at the city skyline. Each building represented power, ambition, success, all the things my family had chased relentlessly. Yet none of those towers had ever felt like home to me. Not until now, when I stood on the brink of creating something truly meaningful. Starting the engine, I pulled away from the curb and merged into traffic. As I drove, memories began flooding back, moments that had shaped me, broken me, and ultimately rebuilt me into the person I was today. Memories of sitting in board meetings as a child, listening to my father lecture me on the importance of thinking big. Of watching Adrian effortlessly charm clients while I stumbled over my words. Of Vivian rolling her eyes whenever I suggested an idea, dismissing it without a second thought. And then there were the darker memories, the nights spent crying in my room after another failed project, the harsh words hurled at me during family dinners, the constant comparisons to siblings who seemed perfect in every way. Those memories still stung, but they no longer defined me. Instead, they fueled me, driving me forward like a fire burning deep within. By the time I reached Lamora Tech's headquarters, a modest office space compared to the gleaming skyscraper I'd just left, I felt steadier, more focused. Stepping inside, I was greeted by the hum of activity, engineers typing furiously at their computers, designers sketching prototypes on whiteboards, executives pacing as they discussed strategy. Everyone moved with purpose, united by a shared vision of changing the world. "Kala." Mia, our head of marketing, called out as soon as she spotted me. She hurried over, her dark curls bouncing with each step. "How did it go? Did they freak out?" "They freaked out," I confirmed with a grin. "Solaris dropped the bombshell right after I left. Apparently, Aunt Evelyn nearly fainted." Mia laughed, clapping her hands together in delight. "Oh, I wish I could have seen that. Seriously though, great job. You handled everything perfectly." Her praise warmed me, but I waved it off. "We all handled it perfectly. This isn't just my victory, it's ours." She nodded, her expression turning serious. "Speaking of victories, we've got some news. Remember that meeting with Green Horizon Energy last week? They want to move forward. Exclusive partnership. Full integration of Lamora's platform." My jaw dropped. Green Horizon was one of the largest renewable energy companies in the world. Landing them as a client would catapult us into an entirely new league. "Are you serious?" I asked, barely able to contain my excitement. "As a heart attack," Mia replied, grinning. "They loved your pitch. Said it was exactly what the industry needs." Looks like you're officially unstoppable. For a moment, I let myself bask in the glow of triumph. This was real. Tangible. Everything I'd worked for was coming together, piece by piece. But as thrilling as it was, I couldn't afford to lose focus. Not yet. There was still so much to do. All right, I said, shaking off the giddiness. Let's get to work. We need to prepare for Green Horizons rollout. And don't forget, we've got a board meeting tomorrow morning. They'll want updates on everything. Mia groaned dramatically but nodded. Got it, boss. Anything else? Nope. Just, keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing at it. With that, I headed to my office, where stacks of papers and glowing monitors awaited. As I settled into my chair, I allowed myself one last indulgence, imagining the look on my family's faces when they realized just how far-reaching Lamora Tech's influence had become. This wasn't just corporate revenge. It was redemption. And I was only getting started. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Green Horizons' partnership announcement sent shockwaves through the industry, and suddenly, Lamora Tech was everywhere. News outlets hailed us as pioneers, investors clamored for meetings, and competitors scrambled to catch up. It was exhilarating and exhausting, but I wouldn't have traded it for anything. Still, amidst the chaos, there were moments when doubt crept in. Late at night, after everyone else had gone home, I'd sit alone in my office staring at the city lights, wondering if I was truly ready for this. Could I handle the pressure? The expectations? What if I failed again, this time not just myself, but an entire team counting on me? But then I'd remember the faces of my employees, their unwavering belief in what we were building. Or Theo's steady voice reminding me that greatness wasn't achieved without risk. And most importantly, I'd think about the boardroom meeting, the stunned silence, the flicker of fear in my family's eyes. They'd underestimated me once too often, and now they were paying the price. It happened sooner than I expected. A letter arrived from my father's lawyer requesting a private meeting. My stomach churned as I opened it, half expecting some thinly veiled threat or desperate attempt to reclaim control. But instead, the tone was different. Almost conciliatory. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a quiet cafe downtown. When I arrived, he was already seated, sipping coffee and looking older than I remembered. For all his bravado, the cracks were starting to show. "Kala," he said, standing as I approached. His voice lacked its usual authority, replaced by something softer. "Vulnerable." "Father," I replied coolly, taking the seat across from him. "What is this about?" He sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "I won't insult you by pretending this is easy for me. You've made your point, Kala. Loud and clear." My eyebrows shot up. This was new. An apology? From him? "You've disrupted everything we've built," he continued, leaning forward slightly. "Solaris, Green Horizon, even our own subsidiaries are questioning their loyalty. We're hemorrhaging clients, partnerships, credibility. All because of you." I crossed my arms, refusing to soften. "And whose fault is that? If you'd bothered to innovate instead of resting on your laurels, none of this would have happened." His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table toward me. Inside were documents outlining a proposal, a merger between Lamora Tech and the family business empire. On paper, it looked like a generous offer, shared resources, expanded reach, mutual benefit. But I knew better. "This isn't about working together," I said flatly, pushing the folder back. "It's damage control. You're trying to save face." He hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Yes. But it's also more than that. Kala, you've proven yourself. Against all odds, you've succeeded where we failed. I can't ignore that anymore." For a moment, I let his words sink in. Part of me wanted to lash out, to remind him of every cruel remark, every dismissive glance, every opportunity he denied me. But another part, the part that still carried a sliver of hope, wondered if maybe, just maybe, this was his way of admitting he was wrong. "I don't need your validation," I said finally, my voice steady. "Not anymore. Lamora Tech stands on its own. If you want to work with us, fine, but only as equals. No strings attached." He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then slowly, he nodded. Fair enough. Consider it done. In the months that followed, the merger became official, not because I needed them, but because it made sense strategically. Together, we revolutionized the energy sector, combining innovation with infrastructure to create solutions no one thought possible. Solaris returned to the fold, along with dozens of other companies eager to join the movement. As for my family, things changed, not overnight, but gradually. Adrian stopped treating me like a joke and started asking for advice. Vivian admitted she'd been wrong to dismiss my ideas and offered to collaborate on future projects. Even Aunt Evelyn softened, occasionally slipping compliments into conversations. But the biggest change came from my father. One evening, after a particularly successful product launch, he pulled me aside. You were right, he said simply. About everything. I'm sorry, Calla. Truly. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them away. Thank you, I whispered. That means more than you know. Years later, I stood on stage at a global tech conference, accepting an award for Lamora Tech's contributions to sustainable energy. Cameras flashed, applause thundered, and somewhere in the crowd, I spotted my family cheering louder than anyone else. This wasn't the life I'd envisioned for myself as a child. Back then, I dreamed of fitting in, of earning their approval. But standing here now, surrounded by people who believed in me, I realized something profound. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had earned my place, not by conforming to their expectations, but by daring to defy them. And as I raised the trophy high above my head, I smiled, not for revenge, but for redemption. For resilience. For proving that sometimes, the greatest victories come not from destroying those who doubted you, but from rising far beyond their wildest imaginations.